Do you remember the first time you saw the Fallout series? Like, the very first time you really saw the world that was offered in this universe? Personally, I remember being around 11 or 12 years old and watching a friend's older brother boot up the classic games. The Maybe intro by the Ink Spots is one of my first memories of the Fallout series, and it set the tone so perfectly for me. It would be Fallout 2 that I would technically play first, but I got sucked into the beauty of Fallout from the very first time I saw the first game's intro. For you, it could have been the classic games as well, or the post-Bethesda games could have caught your eye, and perhaps the flickering light of the radio in the Metro car for Fallout 3 is much more nostalgic to you. Maybe seeing the quick pan-out shot of the Lucky 38 into the bright lights of New Vegas and the ruins of the Mojave was your first look. Whatever the case may be, odds are you have had your own memories burned into your mind from the Fallout series. I want to talk about that today as we look into why there is so much beauty inside the demolished world of the Fallout series. The Fallout universe is filled with despair, the likes we have never seen in our lifetime. Nuclear war has ravaged most of the United States, and presumably every other country, and what's left of humanity is still finding it hard to return to any semblance of life before the Great War. People mostly have reverted to the very basics of human society. While we can find better and stronger examples of people living lives that are pretty close to how it was in the pre-war times, they are still filled with hardships that we cannot identify with in any way, such as bands of roving raiders taking everything they got, these bloodthirsty super mutants dragging them off to vats of goo, and even seemingly ordinary people just having a bad day. Regardless of these obstacles and more, we still see groups not just living but thriving in the wasteland. This is one of the first beautiful things about the Fallout universe: hope. While the Fallout series has been criticized over the years, especially post-Bethesda, about the fact that nobody seems to really clean up after hundreds of years, citing skeletal remains still lying around in frequently used areas and mass amounts of rubble and clutter that people just seem fine with coexisting with in this world. The argument that people would have cleaned up these areas is a good one. While we may not find many egregious examples of this in the bigger settlements globally, it is still a glaring question in the Fallout community. Why don't people clean up and rebuild after 200 years? We see buildings in ruin and groups taking shelter inside these shells of what once was. And there are exceptions to this where there needs to be, with groups like the Enclave, Brotherhood of Steel, and the Institute having tech, and thus shelter for that tech, that far surpasses anything the average wasteland settlement could have. But first, I want to thank this video's sponsor, Gemstone Legends. Gemstone Legends is the best puzzle RPG in 2021 and one of the most fun mobile games I have played. I've always been a fan of battle puzzle games, and Gemstone Legends takes it to a new level with some fantastic RPG mechanics thrown in. Gemstone Legends is free to download and available for iOS and Android. I've enjoyed my time with the game because it offers a pretty exciting storyline and fun PvP battles. Of course, you can find me under the name TKs-Mantis if you want to test your chances, though I spend most of my time hunting the raid bosses that litter the map encounters. I like the ability to upgrade your heroes and steer the build of your team. I always get pulled towards games with an RPG structure, and Gemstone Legends mixes it well with the puzzle format. I find a lot of fun traveling the world map looking for encounters and grinding out levels when I have some free time on my phone. The Match 3 puzzle style has always been a fun and easy game type to just pick up and play. Still, Gemstone Legends goes beyond this significantly with leveling up your gear and your fighters. Each hero has their own abilities and attacks, making building a team pretty interesting as you plan ahead for coming battles. These heroes all have unique attacks as well, which can do loads of damage and are quite fun to deploy. You can download Gemstone Legends today and help out the channel by scanning the QR code on screen if you're on PC, or by checking out the links in the description and the pinned comment below. After installation, you will get a super bonus for new players worth $50. That's a great start, so just finish the tutorial. So use the links below to download Gemstone Legends right now and join me in epic puzzle battles. I'll see you there. While it may be confusing to see big groups like the NCR roll into areas and barely rebuild, we still see the plight of the Wastelander fold out in many venues throughout the series. This might be why no one tries to build the Wasteland back to its former glory before the bombs dropped. The people who live in this universe have a lot going on, to say the least. Every day is a life-threatening adventure. Most do not have what modern-day people would consider even primary education. The average Wastelander cannot read or write unless they grow up in a settlement with systems to educate their citizens. The generations of people that stayed in Vault-Tech's underground vaults were pretty much guaranteed to have a vastly superior education to that of even the smartest waster. This doesn't apply to groups like the Brotherhood, who, like previously mentioned, have education systems. These wastelanders would not know how to rebuild. Granted, the skeletons and trash lying around could easily be cleaned up. Still, the demolished buildings we see likely wouldn't be repaired after the bombs because anyone smart enough to do so isn't interested. So the wasteland implies what knowledge it possesses, making do with what it can, and that is the beauty of hope in the Fallout series. Regardless of impossible odds, people are still using what they got to make do. A blown out building is a hell of a lot better than 6 feet under, and people will do what they can to make it to tomorrow. That is where we find the most beauty in the Fallout universe, not just in the hope, but in the destruction. The rubble that once was everything we knew now hosts constant reminders of the follies of our past. Once huge and daunting metropolises, reduced to near nothing. This scene is terrifying, filled with vicious monsters and brutal raiders, yet the wasteland has undeniable beauty. From the vast deserts of hot, dry sand to the decimated shorelines, I've always found the setting of the Fallout world to be breathtaking, especially when I was first introduced to it in my childhood. I can remember the first few times vividly I saw Fallout and Fallout 2. I was instantly drawn to this bleak world, and I found the setting more intriguing than any I had seen before. Perhaps it was because I hadn't been exposed to anything post-apocalyptic before I saw the Fallout games. Seeing a post-nuclear wasteland for the first time can certainly leave an impact. Still, even to this day, I like the direction Fallout takes with its post-apocalyptic setting over other media in the genre. While I have seen some people be critical of the trimetric point of view in the classic Fallout games, it was still able to capture the imaginations of hundreds and thousands of people, and there's good reason for that. This design style leaves plenty of room for your creativity while giving you great visuals in a wonderfully designed post-nuclear world. On the visuals side, the beauty is right in front of us. The torn landscapes, broken societies, and desolate wasteland paint a most beautiful picture about the future of mankind, even though it's filled with destruction. With their enormous world maps, the first 2 Fallout games drive the point home that there is not much left after the Great War. Notable locations are few and far between, and the maps cover hundreds of miles. In these locations, we see physical beauty. Perhaps it's an acquired taste, but the flea market vibe of the hub, which spans for miles, filled with barely intact structures, makeshift shop signs everywhere, and grifters at every turn, just strikes wonder to my eyes. When it comes specifically to the classic Fallout games, the art style itself is something that speaks to me the most. The way the buildings are designed and how they translate other objects into the trimetric view is pulled off well. I have always found myself immersed in the classic games every single time I play them, and the world design adds to that significantly. Fallout fans in the 90s would often wonder what this world would look like in first person, with the only real glimpse of this happening when interacting with NPCs that had talking heads. Of course, we do not have that same problem after Bethesda released Fallout 3, bringing the series into first person and really giving players a chance to experience this world on an entirely new level. Not only did Fallout 3 bring us into a new viewpoint, but it also put us on a more condensed map, allowing Bethesda to fill this capital with dense inner city areas, but sprawling outskirts as well. The ability to explore the world with this much detail has only added to the beauty we see in the Fallout series. Each building, road, and monument telling a story of past conquests and ugly truths, all still standing even as shells of what they once were. It's beautiful. Why is there so much beauty in destruction? Is it the feelings of transition? That eventually we all, like these buildings, will be destroyed, falling into former shells of our past structures? The Fallout series hits us with these questions in the most direct way possible, by showing the all too likely future of mankind. Is it the fear of nuclear war that brings us to become so interested in a piece of fiction dedicated to telling that story? That what-if effect? Satiating some kind of morbid curiosity that no one truly wants to experience? When we see Washington, D.C. in ruins, or the encapsulated haven of New Vegas, or the clustered streets of post-war Boston, it gives us that glimpse into a future we could never see and never want to see. Yet still, each broken window, decrepit bus, or broken road adds more and more to the natural beauty of these surroundings. Regardless of philosophy, even to the naked eye, the Fallout universe is beautiful. Thank you for checking out my video on the beauty of the Fallout universe. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to leave a like down there to show support. And if you're new around here, subscribing will get you more videos like this, as well as short content that people seem to really like. I also want to thank my patrons and YouTube channel members, and a special thanks to my biggest supporters: Ian Raleigh, Eric W., Nomad, Popo Hum, Fireflare, JP Rivera, Thomas, Billy Joe Jimbob, Marcus Jacobstown, Legendary Angel 94, Phil Starsick, and Edgy. Thank you guys so much for the continued support. I couldn't do it without you. I hope to see you on the next one. It has been Mantis.
I gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day you die, you gon' touch the sky. You gon' touch the sky. baby girl, testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day you die, you gon'